Hello everyone. You're all very welcome to our video to celebrate Heritage Week. I'm here today in Dungarvan Library with local historian and author Liam Suipéil, who has written a book about St Declan of Ardmore. You're very welcome, Liam. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your book?
Thank you very much. Of course, I have a hobby interest in local history, and again, being from Ardmore, St Declan would be part of our everyday life in Ardmore as we grew up. But in latter years, even though people like Siobhan Lincoln and others documented an enormous amount about St Declan, very little was available if you visited Ardmore. So about a year ago, I decided that maybe I would put all the stories and the information about St Declan together into one book. And as a result of that, I was able to publish it late last year, hence Declan.
Perfect. So tell us a little bit about St Declan himself.
Well, to me, St Declan is a very important figure in nDéise, because St Declan was a local man who was born and reared here in Déise country. They say he was born up near Lismore. He was baptised by Coleman from Old Parish, because they say the Christian message had arrived here 150 years before the arrival of St Pádraig. And of course, when we were in school, we were told St Pádraig arrived in Ireland in the year 432. Declan, they say, was born around 370. After being baptised, he was educated locally, and then went to France and went to Rome and became a bishop, and returned to Ireland in 402 with three others, Ivor, Kieran and Alva. And those three, with bishop status, came and spread the Christian message in Ireland at the beginning of the 5th century. Now, Declan arrived in Ardmore, and if you visit Ardmore, you'll see there's a rock down on the beach, and people refer to it to this day as St Declan's Stone, or Pádraig nó Cloch Deaglán Néfa. That stone heralded the arrival for us of Christianity on these shores, because it is said that one of his servants forgot to pack his mass bell when they were returning from Wales, and they prayed, and on the following morning, beside the boat, this rock with the bell on top of it was seen floating. And Declan said to his followers, wherever that rock comes to rest will be the place of my resurrection.
Wow.
And it floated into Ardmore. That's the folklore, that's the story. Now, the life of St Declan was written down in the 12th century from maybe earlier fragments from the maybe 8th century, and that story is embedded in that life, as it were. Declan then came here, started the first monastic settlement in Ireland. It became a huge seat of learning. It became the place where the Christian message was spread around the Deise. And in those days, the Deise spread from, we'll say, the Blackwater down to the harbour in Waterford city, and up midway into Tipperary, up near New Inn. So that area was where Declan and his followers, they were baptising, they were confirming, they were ordaining people from the monastic settlement in Ardmore. And the stories then of Declan and his exploits are recorded in the book, so as that these stories would go forward. Declan, they say, met St Pádraig up near New Inn, because they say St Pádraig never came to the Déise country. Hence, on the book there you see on the cover, Deaglán, Pádraig na nDéise, nDéise ag Deaglán go bráth, which means that when Pádraig met with Declan, it is said that Pádraig said, Declan, you are the St Pádraig of the Déise, and the Déise will be with Declan forever. So that's the connection between St Declan and St Pádraig. Today we see there's an emphasis on the connection between Cashel and Ardmore, because on the old maps, and it's now being explored further with a Camino walk, we can trace the path that was taken from Ardmore to Cashel, because it would appear that there was traffic between Ardmore and Cashel, Cashel being the seat of the King of Munster, and an important place for connectivity with this new faith and belief that was now after arriving in the country, but also for years afterwards, the connection between the monastic settlement and the connection then to the seat of the king, because Ireland remained a monastic society up until the 12th century, when then the diocesan system became prevalent. Declan and the monastic settlement thrived during his lifetime, but towards the end of his life, then he left the monastic settlement and moved into the wilderness, a place called desert in Ardmore to this day, from the Latin desertum, literally the wilderness. And this wasn't unusual, because even prior to Christianity, you had cases of people removing themselves from society and going into the wilderness. But in the case of Ardmore, Declan left the monastic settlement and then went into the wilderness at Desert, Deise, and a place known to this day as St Declan's Well.
St Declan's Well. So what happens in St Declan's Well today?
Well, St Declan's Well was, as I said, where he spent the latter part of his life. And anybody that has visited the area will note, as you come in the gate on your right hand side, there's a well and there are some ruins left of an old church. Declan spent the latter years of his life there, because if you look at St Declan's life, you see that he came from a pagan Ireland, and the pagan Ireland that he left had a great affiliation or a great understanding, maybe greater than we can appreciate today, of nature. So at that spot on the cliff, he was, shall we say, at one with himself, with nature, and with his God. The well, again, is a natural spring well, and that provided fresh water to him, because he would have been alone there, maybe a servant or two, but he would have had his own timber hut or living area, shall we say, at the top of the cliff. When Declan died, his body was taken from there then to the place in Ardmore known as the Old Graveyard. On the 24th of July each year, we celebrate St Declan's Day, and that has been recognised in the church calendar way back to the 8th century, the 24th of July being St Declan's Day. But an interesting point as well that people may not know, that on the 23rd of July, the local people for centuries have gathered together at midnight, and they pray at the well at midnight. And part of the custom in times past was that people who came and prayed at midnight on the 23rd would stay on until daybreak of the 24th, because it was the belief that at daybreak Declan returned to bless the waters of the well.
Wow, I never knew that.
That's part of the vigil of St Declan, and it is still practiced today.
Fantastic.
Now, when Declan died, then his body was taken back to the monastic settlement, and the monastic settlement is beside the cathedral. Again, there were no, shall we say, buildings in stone in Ardmore or on the monastic site at that time. The buildings would have been in timber. And his body was interred on the monastic site in a place and in a building known to this day as the Banachán. And Banachán in Irish means the pointed building, because the roofs on these buildings were pretty steep. Now, some say it was a relatively small church that was built over his grave, but to this day it's known as the Banachán. In Ireland, we didn't start building in stone until maybe the 8th, 9th century. And then when that period came along, the cathedral, or the church of St Declan, was built in stone. And the stonework on the eastern gable and the eastern side of the cathedral was the first built. It's a Gothic architecture. The Banachán, the building under which Declan lies today was also built around that time, because the experts tell us that you can date it by the construction and the stonework on the buildings. The monastic site remained in use as the seat of the bishop up until the 12th century. Ardmore then, in the 12th century, the monastic system changed in Ireland, as I said, and you had a diocesan system, and hence the seat of the bishop went to Lismore. Hence, to this day, in here in Waterford, you have the diocese of Waterford and Lismore. So at that time, then, the importance of the Ardmore location as a monastic settlement faded, and again went off the radar as such.
Okay.
So basically, that's how the story ends over on the at the old graveyard, as they call it, in Ardmore.
And one of the most iconic structures, I suppose, that everybody would say is synonymous with Ardmore is the Round Tower.
Yes.
So just tell us a little bit about that. How old is that?
Yes. Well, the Round Tower was built around the same time, we believe, as the bigger section of the cathedral, 12th century. It was one of the last of the round towers built in Ireland. And there's a uniqueness about the Ardmore Tower insofar as there are 3 rings on the outside. So when you look at the Ardmore Tower, you see these 3 rings at regular intervals on the outside of the tower. They are unique to Ardmore. They're ornamental. Mm-hmm. But basically it is, as you rightly said, a fine example of the Irish Round Tower. Obviously there's nothing inside it. There were timber floors and ladders accessing each floor. They are all gone now. It is closed. You cannot access it, but it is the finest example of the Irish Round Tower. And these round towers appeared maybe from about the 8th, 9th century to the 12th century, invariably on monastic sites. It towers up to about 33 meters high, and the floor is about 5 meters. The first floor door is about 5 meters from the ground.
Wow.
And that's how they access it. But it was basically on the monastic side. Again, adding to the importance of Ardmore and, of course, of Declan.
Well, Liam, thank you so much for that information today, and I found it hugely benefit to know that when I visit Ardmore, I know a little bit more about it.
Thank you very much.
So that's all we have time for today. There's lots going on in Waterford Libraries for Heritage Week. So for all our events, you can check out our website, which is waterfordlibraries.ie, and you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Thanks very much again, Liam, for popping in today to share your knowledge with us. And Liam's book is available in all of our branches to borrow. Thanks also to Suzanne, who's on camera and video production. And I'd just like to thank you all for watching, and bye for now.